Thank you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. Before we get to the video that you came here for, if you could do me one quick favor, just click that subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know. Also, if you want to, click the little bell notification so you know anytime any of our previews go live. We appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Guys, Greg Sankey for whatever. I love the fact that even with the 9th SEC game, it is stipulated that you have to play a Power 4 team or Notre Dame in the out of conference. Well, that's exactly what we're getting in South Bend, Texas A&M at Notre Dame. Really interesting. This game actually opened with Notre Dame as a 6-point favorite on Sunday in the Circa Sportsbook. By now, it has gone up to 7. Again, always subject to change. We're recording on Wednesday night. The over-under in this one is set at 49.5. Night game, South Bend. I'll say this. I think you can legitimately argue this is the game where I think the information that we have on these, I think it's as much of a blank slate on both teams as any marquee game that we have, right? Because no matter what you think about like LSU, Florida, right? LSU, maybe Clemson stinks, but LSU did go to Clemson and win. Tennessee, neutral, whatever. The point I'm trying to make is this, is you look at A&M, they've played Utah State and UTSA, we'll see what that means. And then Notre Dame, they played that one game. They're coming off the rare week 2 bye. So we're going to learn a lot about both these teams coming in. Let's start with A&M because they're just a team that I think on a national scale, we haven't talked about them, right? And I think what's interesting is the more that I dove into A&M this week, the more that I realized I really think that Mike Elko really use these first 2 weeks of the regular season almost as like an NFL preseason. We want to work on some things. We want to get better at some things that we might not be great at now, but we need to be better at over the course of the year. How do I know that? It is because Le'Veon Moss is probably their most dangerous weapon offensively. Through 2 games, he has a grand total of 13 carries. I know he's coming off knee surgery, but he's the best weapon you have. He only has 13 carries. I think Ruben Owens, the other great tailback, has, I believe, 10 carries. So they have clearly prioritized throwing the football. And I think if you pay attention, it makes sense, right? Mike Elko has a lot of confidence, or seemingly has a lot of confidence in that O-line. And it's about getting Marcel Reed reps in the pass game, specifically with that new receiver core headlined by the 2 transfers. Real quick side tangent. I thought this was interesting, but earlier in the week, I was listening to Lane Kiffin while I was reading the quotes, but Lane Kiffin in his press conference previewing Arkansas, he referenced how a year ago at Arkansas, their weakness was the secondary, and now it might potentially be a strength. And what Lane Kiffin said was like, look, this is the world that we live in where if you have a weakness, you can go into the portal, spend money, and fix it. Now, he was talking about Arkansas secondary, but what I think is interesting, I think we're seeing that at A&M with this wide receiver core. Again, A&M just really did not have the guys a year ago that they needed to win those high leverage games in the SEC. Well, fast forward, they go into the portal. They get Mario Craver, the speedster from Mississippi State. They get Casey Concepcion, who was a player that a lot of people wanted from NC State. The 2 of them through 2 games. And again, we're not going to oversell UTSA and Utah State, but 21 catches for those 2, 6 combined touchdowns. Marcel Reed with 7 total touchdown passes. But again, I kind of get the sense that they're not prioritizing the run early, solely because Marcel Reed is actually their leading rusher through 2 games. I don't think that's what anybody in that building wants going forward. Defensively, again, we're trying to figure out how much of it is what are things that are happening that are legitimate concerns and what are things that are happening that maybe Mike Elko is trying to fix in real time. We don't know. I think it's worth noting in week 1 against UTSA was able to run the ball very effectively against Texas A&M. In that game, UTSA finished that game with over 200 yards rushing, about 6 yards per carry, was much better last week when A&M played Utah State. As far as Notre Dame is concerned, listen, like I said, the very rare week 2 bye, but again, it kind of puts on the table like trying to contextualize what we saw in week 1 in Miami. Now, look, we all watched the game Sunday night, incredible atmosphere, incredible environment. And I think, what I saw, I think gave me more questions than answers about Notre Dame, right? And to fully contextualize Notre Dame, I want to take a half a step back. I want to talk about what my personal expectation was of Notre Dame coming into the season. My personal expectation on Notre Dame was this. I thought, okay, you have a young quarterback, basically didn't get any snaps last year, CJ Carr. You're going to lean on Jeremiah Love. You're going to lean on the offensive line. The wide receiver core, it is worth noting with Notre Dame, probably the deepest that they've had in this kind of Marcus Freeman, Brian Kelly run, a lot of new faces. And then on defense, it kind of felt like, okay, front seven lost some guys, but the secondary was actually where the strengths were. So I bring all of that up because the one game sample size that we have on Notre Dame was basically the exact opposite of pretty much everything that we were expecting to see. Jeremiah Love finishes with 10 carries. Is that a byproduct of they just felt like that Miami defensive front was filthy? Or was that more of a byproduct of, oh, we just went away from the run too early. We fell down early. We felt like we had to pass it. CJ Carr, of course, was very good late in that game as he got more comfortable, 2 touchdowns and an interception. And then defensively, again, you thought that Miami O-line going up against a pseudo revamped Notre Dame defensive line was going to be an issue. Well, Miami's held to about 3 yards per carry, 119 yards on the ground, but it was Carson Beck and the receiver core that really made the difference. So we'll see what all that means. As far as a pick is concerned in this game, so I'll be real. And if you're new to the college football betting show, I always try to keep it real with everybody. And the one thing I always say is that if I wasn't comfortable going to a sports book, sitting down and taking my hard-earned money and taking it to the window, I'm not going to tell you guys and girls to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And usually by about Wednesday or Thursday of a big game week, I kind of have a feel for the big games. This is one, I think it's so early. Notre Dame's only played once. Texas A&M has played nobody of note. I actually have no official pick on this game. And again, I'm trying to be fair to you guys and girls as an audience of like, if I wouldn't bet it, why am I going to tell you that, you should bet this and that? No, that's not how the show operates. Okay. So what do I think will happen? What I think will happen is, listen, I think Notre Dame, one, having the Power 4 experience plus having the week off, I think they're going to come out ready to go. I think we're going to see a much better Jeremiah Love, not a better Jeremiah Love, but a more engaged and involved Jeremiah Love from the offensive coaching staff in this game. And I think CJ Carr will be comfortable. I think it's fair to have questions about A&M. We like the defensive personnel. Cassius Howell, by the way, I forgot to mention, sack on 3 straight plays last week against Utah State. I saw Myles Garrett after the Browns game saying, when I grow up, I want to be like Cassius Howell. So I thought that was pretty cool. You like the Texas A&M personnel, but it's obviously a step up. Utah State, first-year head coach Bronco Mendenhall, UTSA, and Notre Dame on the road at night in South Bend. So you have kind of the situation with Texas A&M. What are they? Are they not using their backs because they don't trust the O-line, or are they not using their backs because they're really starting to ramp up and try to save Le'Veon Moss's legs and Reuben Owens' legs for these games as the season goes on? We just don't know much about it. The one thing I will say that I find interesting, by the way, and it's the same with Notre Dame. What's the deal with Jeremiah Love? Are they going to get him more involved? Whatever. The one thing I will say about this game, I do think the revenge factor on both sides will be interesting, right? A&M, easy to forget, last year was in the college football playoff conversation and the SEC championship game conversation right up until the bitter end, okay? The same time, though, I will also add that when it comes to that game, part of the reason that they were not in the college football, I don't think it really was, but they did lose to Notre Dame at home. So I think you have that part of the equation. But then from the Notre Dame perspective, I think it's also important to note that, if they lose this game, you start 0-2. I just don't know that you have enough big games left on your schedule to truly put together a college football playoff resume. I bring it up to say if I had a lean, I would take Notre Dame to win, Texas A&M to cover. I'd say 24-20. Do I feel so confident about it that I'm going to give you that as a pick? I will not.